So tonight we are letting you in on a conversation with my father in the ministry, aka 106. He's the 106 bishop in the AME Zion Church. He is the former senior pastor of Simon Temple AME Zion Church there in Fayetteville, North Carolina, but I know him as Pop. And so people have been asking, look, y'all are a non-denominational church, and your bishop, the church's bishop, is AME Zion. How did y'all meet? And whenever he comes to preach, he comes a couple times a year just to impart a word on the church and just be with us. And I'm always trying to tell the story in a little bit amount of time because they don't want to hear all that. They want to hear their bishop preach. And I love that for the fact. But a lot of people just don't know how did these two Chapel Hill boys, and I say boys with affection, out of respect for my bishop, but how did these two Chapel Hill boys, non-denomination, wearing these hoodies, and then you got this bishop in the AME Zion Church. How did they meet? And so we're going to let you guys in on a conversation tonight. And you may be saying, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a minister, I'm not a preacher, but we feel like that our relationship is equivalent to anybody who has a mentor, has a OG, or has somebody who just imparts stuff into them. And so we just hope this is going to be helpful to anybody tonight. You say, I'm looking for a mentor, I'm looking for somebody to mentor me, whatever you may need. But so we're going to talk about how we met. And so you ready, Pop?
I'm ready.
And so I think the first thing, how I remember the story, and I want to see if our stories, if they line up. I remember this guy that I'm friends with. His name is Irvin Murray. And it's what this is what I call the pursue of our relationship. This is what I call the pursue. I think it's like a Elijah relationship. It's the pursue. And he said, man, you got to meet this guy. You got to meet this guy, man. He a real preacher. I said, okay, what about? He said, he's a real reverend. He's a real. I said, well, what makes him a real reverend, man? He wear a robe. He ain't wearing jeans like y'all and tennis shoes. He a real preacher. He got a robe on, and he said he's in that word. I said, okay, am I not in the word? He said, no, that's not what I'm saying. And he said, he's in the back of the church at the end of service, and he's shaking hands and doing all this. He a real reverend. But he never told me your name. He said he's the pastor at Simon Temple AME Zion Church in Fayetteville. Mm-hmm. And one day I was going to get my car washed, and as I parked, I got out, and I remember the day I saw you. You had on a yellow polo shirt, and you had on some brown shorts. I'm not going to tell the bishops you wearing shorts. Some brown shorts, and then you thought you were cool. You had this little gold bracelet on your wrist. I think that was your weekend bracelet, and you were on the phone. And I walked up to you and I said, "Are you Pastor Brian Thompson?" And you said, "I am." And I said, "I'm Nate Davis. I'm from Chapel Hill too." And we had a conversation, and I asked for your phone number in the pursuit. And you gave me your phone number, and some time went by, and I didn't know whether to use it or whether not to use it. And I said, I'm gonna text him. And I text you, and you responded. I said, man, this dude with this really big church. He responded. And so we started having some conversations after that. And we got invited to a luncheon at Governor Cooper's house, and you and I were outside. When time for us to go in, they were doing the Secret Service wand thing and showing our ID. And you like, hey man, and I said, hey Pastor, how you doing? And we were talking, chit chatting, and I never forget. We went into the governor's mansion and we went to the place where we were gonna have lunch, and they had put nameplates where people sit. They had assigned seats, and me and you were sitting beside each other. And I never forget. They were talking. And you slid your phone to me. He said, put your number in my phone. And I was so excited. I'm getting goosebumps now. I was so excited. Oh, he want my number, man. Good gracious. Oh, man, I'd have found me a friend, because at that luncheon, it was only 12 pastors, and I was the only one that was not a pastor. And I was like, why am I here? And I believe that we were supposed to meet. I believe there was supposed to be another meeting outside of Frankie's. And so you tell me, is that how you recall how we first met?
Yeah, I recall it. I remember seeing you there, and I recognized you. And of course, you know, your dad's legacy is so big that, you know, that was when I found out that was the connection. I remembered you. We weren't as familiar for me to be able to know all the intricacies of who you were, but I know whose you were. And I said, I know exactly who this is. So yeah, our babies jumped. We clicked in right there, and then Lord would have it, we sitting beside each other.
We sit beside each other, and then the team that I played on at Methodist, they were being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I text you, I said, I'm gonna be in town.
Yeah.
And you said, all right, you're gonna come to service, and we came to service. And I think, you know, it was all these signs, whether I knew whether this is something I needed to continue to pursue. Right. And I'll never forget, I came to your office, and you told missionary supervisor, you were like, hey, I want Nate to sit with me on the stage today. Is that okay? And she said, oh yeah, Pastor, that's fine. And my wife was with me. And I remember being in the pulpit with you, and I'm looking for the first lady of the church.
Right.
You know, one of the largest churches, or the largest church in the AME, and I'm looking for, and my wife and missionary supervisor are on the third row of the church. And after my wife, Tequila, said, hey, Nate, you won't believe what happened today. I was like, what? She said, now she's the first lady of the church, and she went and told a deacon or usher, it was somebody, pastor said he wants Nate to sit with him in the pulpit today. Can you find a place for us? I'm like, can you find this? Is the first lady of the church. And they were on the third row, and she was worshiping like she was in the pulpit, or was on the front row of the church. And I knew then, I was like, man, I'm gonna pursue this, man. Like, this is who I want to be, my father in the ministry. And I was trying to wait to shoot my shot. I said, you know, it was kind of like I done got to the phone number stage. I got the phone number.
Right.
We talking and having some conversation. I was like, no, I got to shoot my shot. And I was going to the expert nutrition, and I said, hey, I want you to be my father in the ministry. And you said something that day, because one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation, because when I first got saved and I heard about a spiritual father, a father, I thought that was like the weirdest thing in the world. You know, I heard somebody, that's my spiritual daddy, that's my spiritual mama. I'm like, hold on, I know your mama. But I started to understand what it meant, and I never had one. And I asked you, and the thing you said to me that day, you said, I'll pray about it, but first, I want you to ask your father.
Right.
And why did you say that to me that day, Pop?
Well, it's two things. Let's pursue and the permission.
Okay.
See, I think a lot of persons mix it up, and persons who looking for mentors, a lot of times they're not really looking for mentors. They're looking for a spiritual hookup.
Okay.
So they can say that I roll with this person, I talk to this person, I got this person's number, I can call them. You know, that's a surface, that's esoteric, that's on the surface. You can get that from anybody. You know, I can go to the mall and see somebody and see a brother who preaches, say, hey, can I get your number? It's not relational. It's just a surface thing. But the pursuit that you had is what impressed me, because not that I'm so bad, I have so much theological knowledge, or my mantle is so powerful that by us being associated, that you are going to be something great. the fact that you pursued, he that hunger and thirst after righteousness shall be filled. And I'm not righteous, and I know that scripture is the context of seeking after the presence of God, but I also think it has a parallel or a similar when you're going after somebody to pour into you. You've the initiative to do that, because if I'm going to mentor you, if I'm going to be your spiritual father, it shouldn't be that I'm doing all the work. If I go to the gas station and I get ready to pay for gas, then I'm the recipient. The tank is the giver. Then the tank asks me a series of questions before it does it. Credit or cash. It asks me for pen. Do I want a car wash? It asks me questions before it pours out. Right. I have to meet the requirements before it will do it. Now, anybody can pull up to that station and do that. So it's not the favor of God is so on the person that they do it, but they fulfill the requirements. All my requirement is I'm already busy. I had, at that time, I had 36 preachers on staff. I didn't need another responsibility. But I also understood the divine connection. Yeah. And I believe that when somebody pursues and they ask you whether you have the time or not, and your spirits align, like the Lord had us to meet at the governor's mansion, at Frankie's, at the gate, when you saw me in the shorts, all of those were those confirmation signs that God allowed us to be in each other's presence for us to be able to come together. And the proof is where we are now. So the pursuit needed to be done because, honestly, all over, wherever I go, and this is for anybody who the Lord has allowed to a servitude position of bishop, or whether it's an apostle, whether it is a overseer, whatever it is, you have a responsibility, I believe, and when you have that mantle, to share it with somebody else. My pastor, the Reverend, he's my spiritual father, Reverend Lawrence Turner. He's 92 years old. In fact, I need to go see him. Hopefully when I land next time, I need to go over to Durham and see him. He's in assisted living facility now. And he was my spiritual father. So in 1992, I was driving him around as a member of Holland's Chapel, AME Zion Church in Apex. I was driving him to revivals and things like that as just a junior trustee of the church, not knowing that God was setting me up at that time to be able to be a preacher and a bishop. But the mantle, what I learned from him was more than I learned at any seminary I've ever attended. Duke, United Seminary. I love them. They got my money. I got their degrees. Praise the Lord. It's a wonderful thing, but they didn't teach me what he taught me. So driving with him, and I wanted to, part of the agreement was that was unwritten, for me to get that and that mentorship, I had to be his driver. So I get off work from Alltel Communications at whatever time I needed to get off, not go home, go ahead and, go to his house in Durham on Sedgefield, pick him up and take him all over North Carolina for 5 nights. They weren't doing no 2-night revivals, 5-night revivals. And that was the mentor. And when I did that, I'll never forget it. That was in 92. In 93, I received my calling to preach at 10:26 p.m. at Hamlet's Chapel CME Church, where he was doing a revival. Had a 12-pack of Michelob on the back seat. But I put it in the trunk so I could go to revival, and I was going to get towed up after revival. I got saved, acknowledged my calling to preach on the edge of my bed at 4 a.m., called him that next morning and said, I acknowledged my calling to preach. He said, son, it's about time. That next year, I rode with him, driving him places. He told me I was going to be a pastor. He told me I was going to be a presiding elder. He told me I was going to have one of the largest churches in Zion, and told me I was going to be a bishop in the church. Now, that was in 1993, Pastor Nate, 1993. This man ain't got no he has a high school diploma. That's his furthest education. He was a baker over at Duke University. He don't know all of the ecclesiastical verbiage, but you talking about anointed and man of God,
Mhm.
mentored me. So I pursued him. Long story short, you pursued me, but really I pursued the presence of God through him. You pursued the presence of God through me so that you could help mold and shape. And when somebody will pursue like that, as he said to me, a lot of people are going places, but they won't stay there long because they don't want to be mentored. So
Mhm.
I saw in you a hunger and desire, which made me have a hunger and desire to pour into you because you had a hunger and desire to learn, not to, and people, when y'all heard him say pursue, he's not pursuing the mantle or the aura of Brian Thompson. What he was doing is saying, I need spiritual covering. I need
Mhm.
spiritual father. Now, spiritual father is all through the Bible, whether you're doing Elijah and Elisha, or
Mhm.
whether you're doing Paul and Timothy, however you're looking at it, there is a transference of mantle. There is a instruction that receives an impartation that comes from that person. But the person who's giving, whether it is Elijah and Elisha, that Elijah should feel just as honored as the Elisha. And I feel just as honored to be your spiritual father as you feel and show to be my spiritual son, because it has to be a give and take, honor with honor. If I feel like I'm doing you a favor and I am the reason you are where you are, silly rabbit tricks are for kids. I'm telling you,
Mhm.
it don't work like that. God
Right.
gives me a responsibility to pour into somebody else because somebody poured into me. And even if somebody didn't pour into me, I still have that responsibility, because just like we go out and make disciples, we're all supposed to have kindred spirits and pour into
Mhm.
each other. Now, I ain't forgot. I know who I am. Like I say, when I'm preaching, when I talk a long time and people
No,
think
you're
I'm
good.
long. The second thing is when you asked me, I said I had to pray about it. I guess it's a 3-part here. I had to pray about it to make sure I was doing it for the right reason.
Mhm.
I was going to take the time to do it, because ain't no use in
Mhm.
you saying to do it. I'm not criticizing anybody, but I'm just making an observation. When these persons say, I'm going to be your spiritual father and the spiritual son relationship, and you're going to be their covering, and the only thing you do is call them once a month and ask them
Mhm.
$10,000. That ain't spirit. That's pimping. That is not a spiritual covering.
And Pop, can I interrupt you right there? And just like you said, a great point. I remember it's 2 instances I remember is that this is when Brian Jr. was playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And I would call you all the time. And you
Uh-huh.
would text me back, I'm gonna call you back. So, and you always did.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's y'all went to South Carolina
Mm-hmm.
and I called you and you said, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
I said, yeah, I just called to check on you. You said, I'm in South Carolina at a basketball tournament with my son. And you said, I ain't picked this phone up for nobody all day. You said, I'm going to drive back. I'm going to catch a plane. We're going to fly back to Simon Temple. And I got to preach tomorrow. But when you did that, I knew that I felt like I was important. Like, even if you couldn't have a conversation that day, I felt like I was important. Like, even when we started Now Church, to your second point, and I tried to give you an honorarium the first year
Mm-hmm.
for being our bishop. And you said, no, you don't have a building yet, and y'all have not gotten started good yet. Don't give me anything. I'm doing it because I want to see the church do well. So I just wanted to say that to your second point.
Hey, and I appreciate it, because that's what it's about, and we understand. Again, I'm not criticizing people. There is a give honor where honor is due, but you also have to look at the process and growth of the person. I don't want to pimp no preacher or no church just to be able to say I've got this many sons, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm really doing it so that many sons and daughters can take care of my financial needs. It's a spiritual thing. It is a spiritual thing. And yes, y'all, y'all have been so generous and has blessed our supervisor and I. And it's a wonderful thing, but we're just as appreciative. It's not required. It's not
required,
expected, but it's appreciated. And
right?
that's a wonderful thing. So that is that relationship when you know, when I say I had to pray about it, to make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. And then I had to say to the Lord, if you know, I believe this is you, and the Lord is not going to transgress my will. So if I wanted to do it, he'd let me do it. But I want to I'm lining up with God. I want to make sure I got peace with it. So
Yes,
I had
sir.
peace with it. And then you asked the third part about your father. People don't understand spiritual father sonship. So what they do is when they don't understand it, what they'll do is make a mess of it. And what I wanted to do is make sure, and I know a spiritual father is different from a natural father, but I never want to come between a father and a son. And I had to make sure you, as a spiritual son, was able, your natural dad would be comfortable with it. When you say that, or I say spiritual son, he ain't all out bent out, because the relationship with your mother and father is more important than me being able to say out of my mouth that I'm your spiritual father. If that was the case, then I'd back off, and we'd either not do it, or I'd have to be called something else. The humanistic factor we have to deal with. Me and you are in ministry, and we do this, and we have an understanding. And I know your mom and dad are saved, and they love the Lord, but they're not working in ministry the way we are. So I just want them to say, here is this dude coming around trying to take possession of our son. Where was he at when he was growing up and needed to do this and that? So that was refreshing to me, that they were cool with it. And that's when I said, if he cool, I'm cool.
I think one of the things that I had the privilege of doing also is, now that you are 106, that you are bishop, just like my kids, your kids have had to learn how to be in a relationship with a person who is called in the ministry. I had to learn how to be in a relationship with somebody who is over the Western Episcopal District, who is a bishop, who is 106, who has churches in California and Washington and Colorado. And I remember my first experience was when we were having our installation. And you were going to come that day, September 15th. I never forget, you were going to come that day and do the installation. And during your service, somebody in the AME Zion Church had passed. And this was a time you were not, they had not elected you bishop yet.
That's right.
You were running for bishop, and you called me and you said, son, I'm not going to be able to come. And I had to understand, I had to put the way I felt aside, because I knew with that happening in the AME Zion Church, you had to be there because you were running for bishop at that time. You saying, I'm not, I'm going to go see my son in the ministry, his installation, and I'm not Zion, and I ain't have no letters. I knew that wasn't going to look good. And so I had to learn in that moment how to be like, my father in the ministry is an AME Zion bishop, and I know where he wants to be. It's just kind of like us being in the ministry for so long. We missed basketball games, we missed some stuff, and our kids have had to understand. And in the same way, I had to understand. You sent a video, I could see it in your face. You were crushed. You were like, I'm going to try to get there if I can, but I knew you couldn't. And I had to understand, but I didn't want to be a stumbling block for something that you and supervisor had prayed about and were pursuing. You get what I'm saying? And, I had to understand that.
Well, and I appreciate the maturity, and that showed the maturity of the relationship. And also, you saw me trying to get to a destination, and that release helped me so I could be able to do what I needed to do to get to this destination. So that also, that with you understanding that helped me and affirmed even more that if you're going to do that for me, I was willing to do whatever I needed to for you.
Mhm.
That one time not being present would never take the place of the times that we have on the phone
Absolutely.
there. And that's the commitment. And that's what I meant by that dualistic commitment between
Mhm.
both of us. Because if you were a spoiled son, then you'd have had a temper tantrum and went off, and that would have probably severed the relationship
Mhm.
because you didn't hold that in your heart. And it helped me to be able to go do my assignment because I had a larger responsibility.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things too is, when people try to figure out the dynamics of this relationship and, me being a denominational pastor in the Triangle area and you being AME Zion, I think one of the things that AME Zion and especially the Western Episcopal District has, I can say they have been very, very receptive of me being one of your sons. Whenever they do anything for you, any kind of recognition, any kind of thing, I'm invited, and you'll let them know he ain't got the letters, but he's one of my sons. But they have been very, very receptive of Now Church being a part of who you see and who you oversight. Have you gotten that same thing?
Oh yeah. And they're good with it because they see relationship.
Mm-hmm.
They see, not just because the bishop said it, that's going to carry some weight, but
Mm-hmm.
it helps because there's relationship. They see how much I care about you, you care about me, and they see it in our interaction because we can say it all we want to, but when they see it in our interaction, they know it. So it's very strange to be able to have a bishop of the AME Zion Church being able to cover and to oversee a non-denominational pastor. But when, just like I told the other board members, it's only a total of 12 of us on the board internationally. And, I said to them that I'm mentoring, covering, and being a spiritual father of Now Church, Pastor Nate, Lady T. That's what I'm going to do. Now, I'm not violating any covenant. Is it norm? No, it is a new paradigm.
Because I couldn't even call you bishop at first. You remember?
Right. You could
Remember, I had to show you all my literature, and you was like, "Hey," and I understood it because you were running for bishop at that time. I can't even remember the verbiage that we had to use.
Bishop. Go ahead.
Yeah, and no, I was just saying I couldn't even remember the verbiage we had to use.
Yeah,
but I knew there was somewhere you were trying to get, and I wanted to be a part of you getting there.
Yeah, and you've been a help, not a hindrance, because with that, I got a chance with this model is to also use this model, whether they have the letters behind the name or not, to be able to mentor, oversee, be a bishop to many persons. And with the success of Now Church, which is just phenomenal and unheard of, whether it's denomination or non-denomination, it's just unheard of in these times. It's in the top 10 percentile of growth in churches. Even if you look at Barna research studies, y'all been around for 5. We turned this many. All right.
We turned this many.
This many. That's just unheard of. And the success is due to the hand of God, but also to you and Lady T and your wonderful staff and the people at Now Church. But to be able to do that, I've taken things from y'all and implemented it where I'm serving with over the 6 states. That I serve as bishop, to be able to say, my son, he is doing this. All right, sons and daughters, y'all got to be able to do this as your bishop. This is what I'm telling you. That's where, even when I had you to come out to Sacramento to be able to teach, because understand that the Holy Spirit is non-denominational and not non-denominational. He's just God, his kingdom. And I had to show the board and others, it's a kingdom model. I ain't trying to get him in Zion. If he chose to come, then that's fine. But I ain't trying to solicit it. Like I told your congregation, Now Church, our family, at the 5th anniversary, I told you not to, because it's not about getting you into a certain a religious order to be able to say, I want him in this denomination, but I want y'all to be kingdom. So it was easy for me to be able to do that and not worry about it. And I'm not violating any, it's not, you know, it's unheard of. It's
Right.
a new paradigm,
Right.
but I'm not violating any of our tenets or doctrine that within we, you know, I'm always got to hear this is what we call our book of discipline. This he said,
Okay.
that thing is thick, Doc, and it's discipline. I know it back and forth. We're not violating anything, but I'm also given some freedom, some levity to be able to do what I need to do to be a kingdom mentor rather than a denominational mentor.
Yeah, I think two things too, Pop, and you know, sometimes I call you Bishop. Most of the time, I'm calling you Pop.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I think is so interesting. I think that it was good that we were not too familiar with each other
Yes,
before
right.
we started this relationship. I think it's good that I didn't know Brian R. Thompson. I didn't know Brian. The only thing I knew was Reverend Brian Thompson, Simon Temple AME Zion Church.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that's really, really unique about our relationship too is I'm 50 and you're 55.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people, you know, one of the things I don't do with you, you know, and we do have fun on the phone. We do have conversations. We talk about the basketball game. You know, I call you on nights that you got to come preach at other churches or preach at Now Church because you know you get your Saturdays free now and you try to stay up late and watch games and boxing matches and stuff and you know you'll call me, hey, you're studying, you got to preach tomorrow. And so I do the same thing with you, and so we do have a really, really, really good relationship. And I think sometimes when you hear don't get too familiar, you know, you can think that you can't have a good relationship with these people, but I don't ever overstep the boundaries because there's some things that I wanted to do that you didn't let me do. And you know, that's when that I want accountability and I'm not AME Zion and you're not, you know, because it was some things, you know, I remember one time I was sending you our stuff every day. I was sending you our Easter numbers and sending you this and sending you that. And you like, hey, that's good. I'm like, dang, that's all I'm gonna get. And then so I call you, I call you back. I'm like, man, I'm sitting on here all these graphs and these stats and all this. And I said, you know, this is what I want to do. And he's like, yeah, you're not ready. I'm like, man. And I kept sending you stats and kept sending you stuff. And I think that's when that accountability it comes in when somebody is telling you no to something that you want to do. And then you come and you preach and you brag about it to the church you cover about how you told me no.
And you know, that was a sign of the maturity that you had, that you would listen when you didn't have to. My spiritual father did the same thing to me. And I was like, and I didn't do it just because he did it, but now I see from the other side why he did it. And I saw it long before now.
And I do too.
Yeah. See, and that makes it different.
You said this may happen, so let's just hold off. You're doing good. You do in my bishop, you're doing good, son. Proud of you. Them good numbers. That's good stuff. You know, I'll see you do everything. But then I saw 2 weeks later, like, ooh, I see what he's talking about.
There you go. Because see, if and people who are listening, who wondering who spiritual fathers are or spiritual sons, if you're gonna get some spiritual leadership to advise you or to cover you, you don't need no neophyte and somebody who hasn't done it. You know, there's a app called Angie's List. And what they do is they've got persons on there that's been rated, reviewed, certified. They do all that work for you, so you don't just get somebody from off the corner.
Right.
I don't want somebody coming in tearing up my plumbing who ain't, this is their first job. That company, they started their company last week. And that's not saying people don't need a chance. There's nothing wrong with getting a chance. But if I need somebody to be my spiritual covering, my bishop, my overseer, I need for that person to have been through some ups and some downs, some
Mhm.
victories and some failures, some yes and some no's. And
Mhm.
over, at that point when we talked, I guess I had been in ministry maybe almost 26, 27 years. And now
Mhm.
I'm on my 31st year. I mean, even if the church hadn't amassed what it had and the success of Simon Temple, by virtue of longevity and some what God had done, and you see the fruit and the evidence, because again, some persons who've been doing it for 40 years, but they have not been doing it to the point where it's kingdom. You can't take advice from everybody, but I knew I had been through enough, and you saw it. And in the
Mhm.
pursuit, this brother done some things. This brother
Mhm.
helped me. So then, therefore, when it came together, you were able to be mature enough to listen to what was said, and you never bucked against it. You never bucked against it. And I
Mhm.
told my wife often, when we were going through those things, I said, he asked me this, I told him this. He said, what is that? He said, all right, Pop. All right, Pop. And see, that's it. I had to say, all right, Pop, to my
I it's interesting too. It's just the dynamics that I think you have. I think what I needed, because I got saved at Emmanuel Fellowship Church of God in Christ, the
Mhm.
late Apostle Lockett, and I
Like,
had some other, just in spirituality and salvation. But I think you had the template for what I wanted to do, and I feel like you understood me. And I think one of the things that's interesting is that, I look at it like, me and you are really into sports, really into basketball.
mhm.
And just, you see, and I give basketball examples all the time. Just, when Kobe went on to be with the Lord and Michael Jordan got up and talked about it. He was like, man, this dude is bothering me. He called me at 2 o'clock in the morning and asked me about this move, and asked me about this, and asked me about this. And it just kind of, it's kind of like our relationship. I may call you, Pop, I got a question. All right, what you got? Or you may be on a plane. I'm on a plane in California. I'm gonna call you when I touch down. And if I don't hear from you, I'm gonna call you again. I'm on a
That's it.
Zoom. I'm in a meeting, and I'm gonna keep going until I get my question answered. And I think you never made me feel like I was bothering you. And then, you being married as long as you have, and having two other children, natural children, but I've always felt like I was important, and I felt like I was a part of the family. I feel like that missionary supervisor, because I know sometimes I'm on the phone, I'm like, hey, Pop, you good? You got time for a question? Yeah, we just sit here looking at this movie. And I, you can tell energy if somebody else is in the room, like, hurry up and get off that phone, And I think the thing about it is I'm thankful for her also, because I've never felt like, I was bothering you or I was bothering her. And I
Mhm.
think that's one of the things that's really unique about our relationship. But I think if somebody has something that you feel like you need, no matter the age,
Mhm.
um, you get what you get. People that I've mentored, first thing I ask them is, okay, what do you think? What is it that you want me to be in this relationship? Because I don't want to do too much or do too less. So when we first started having conversations, what do you think I needed?
I think seriously, you were so far advanced, which was a wonderful thing. Um, you had come, you had a good foundation,
Hmm.
but you needed guidance. You needed guidance. And the Lord was feeding you so fast. And by him feeding you, you needed that guidance to be able to go where you needed to go. And see,
That's good, Pop.
say again.
That's good. That's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
you you just needed guidance. You had 5,000 ideas, but you couldn't do but two or three of them at the time. And see, the beauty of Elisha is, I should not want you to step in the same mud holes that I stepped in and be able to say, well, I had to step in them. You ought to step in them too. That you don't have to step in every mud hole I stepped in to grow. I ought to be able to, if I'm your mentor, if I'm your bishop, if I'm your overseer, I ought to be able to say, you know what? There's a hole right there, and I'm not going to let you step in it because recovery time takes too long. And that was something that you just needed the guidance. And you know, first of all, it's hard, and most churches that plant don't succeed. And you and Lady T were able to do this at a strange time and be able to do it in such a way that God favored y'all and favored your vision. I knew that you would need the guidance, because two things I didn't want to happen: for you to not only step in mud holes you didn't have to, but also see the success, which was rare in y'all's case, very rare in the world, for the success that y'all had. And see, what happens is with all of us, I don't care if it's talking about you and I, or talking about other people in the world, in their businesses, in their life, in their with their finances, or with their jobs, or whatever. Sometimes the modicum of success in the flesh is not able to be tamed by the spiritual, because you're running so fast, you're forgetting and not seeing to seek. And the enemy is crafty. He will let you see. See, I always use this example. You can tell what's from the enemy and what's from the devil. Okay. God will always show you both sides of the coin. Okay. He'll show you the good and the evil. He'll show you the choice and the consequence. The enemy ain't gonna show you nothing but what the good. He ain't gonna show you the consequence. A lot of times when you're doing ministry, and I'm speaking of myself, we grew so fast. There's a lot of things that I made a flesh decision when I should have made a spiritual decision. And when I made those decisions, because we were growing so fast, I started looking at others, because a lot of times nobody told me, and nobody told me not to step in that mud hole. Well, once I found out where the mud holes were, and I saw you, I said, oh no, you may step in some, but if I can keep you from stepping in some and falling off some cliffs, I'm not going to let you do it, because you're going to have it's hard enough to pastor, much less plan a church and be as successful as Now Church has been. That ain't nothing but the hand of the Lord, but it's also obedience of leadership. And people miss that part. But my hope and prayer is that I have done enough to be able to steer you from some of those mud holes, cause the spiritual conviction to come upon you when I ask you not to do something or to do something, when you have the free will to be able to do it. But yet at the same time, I see the fruit of your labor, because you have been obedient. You and Lady T have been obedient to that. And that makes that gives me confirmation that we are intertwined together, and my labor's not in vain. You know, I ain't got much time. I don't have much time from day to day. I ain't got time for myself sometimes. I have to remember. You'll be proud of me. I walked 1.5 yesterday. I walked 1.5 today. I did my push-ups. I did my crunches. I did all that. But guess what? I have to put in the reminders for me to be able to do that. Because when I hit the flow, I got calls coming from Arizona. From last night, I got calls from California, from Seattle, Washington. I got all these things from all over the denomination going on. And I have to remind myself to do these things. I said that to say, I'm your reminder. I'm your reminder that even though you're well balanced and you're well centered, and I know the hand of God is on you, he put me as your spiritual father, as your bishop, as overseer, to be able to say, you know what, that I'm going to make sure to the best of my ability that you, through the Holy Spirit, you can see the unseen. If there's something that I can advise, I'm going to advise. But at the end of the day, it's up to you whether to do it or not.
Yeah, and I think that's good, Pop, because one of the things is, as we're going to this place where we're going to build a church soon, I have a model where you're kind of like, hey, let me tell you how much seats cost. I'm like, oh, do they? Okay, so this is how much. And so is that model that you're talking about? And I just thought it was so interesting that you being the bishop of the Western Episcopal District of the AME Zion Church, but you being a resident of Fayetteville and frequenting Chapel Hill and Durham a lot because a lot of your affairs here. And, you know, that's one of the things I want to talk about is that in this relationship, it's not just me calling you, asking you questions. Can you do this for me? Can you come preach? In a mentor-mentee relationship, in a bishop-pastor relationship, with you being as busy as you are and being in California. You just came back from Alaska, and now you got to go back to Palo Alto, California. You were just in Sacramento and Alaska, and now you got to go to Palo Alto because they're going to celebrate you. This is your 4th year being a bishop?
Third year.
Third year being a bishop, but your parents are here.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents are here, and your brother is going on to be with the Lord, and it's just you and your brother. There are times when you're in California and you say, hey, son, it's my parents' wedding anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
They're at Ruth Chris restaurant. I need you to go get a cake, put some candles on it, take it over there.
That's
hey,
right.
son, my mom and them need, we need DoorDash to their house.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go over there and do that? Can you send somebody? They need their remote control program. And every time you're here, they come here. But in that relationship, there's some things, you know, it's not just spiritual, you know, hey, I need you to go do this for me.
That's it. And I know I can trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in this relationship, births out more than, like you said, just sermon prep, talking about buildings. We care for each other's family. And I know as a spiritual son, you're going to take care of my mom and dad.
Absolutely.
Just like I would. And I don't trust many folks to be able to do that. I went to see mom and dad today because I know I got to fly tomorrow. So I went to see them today, and I ain't going to see them probably 2 weeks, because then after I leave this, I got to go back, go to LA. So I know I'm not going to see them. So I was just there for an hour. But guess who they asked about? How's our son? How Pastor Nate doing? You know,
I get a birthday card and everything from mama.
See what I'm saying? Because there's connection there. There is connection there. And that's a part of that spiritual son, spiritual father that is able to work. Because what happens is that there's a trust there. There is a spiritual trust, and it also is a natural trust. I can be able to say it. First of all, I know it's going to be done. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I know it's going to be done with a spirit of excellence. And if I go there and I forgot something, you're going to see the unseen and say, well, Pop, well, you told me to do this, but I'm going to let you know I went ahead and did this because you wanted them to program the remote, but they ain't got no battery. So I went ahead and, you know, stuff that you done, well, you didn't tell me to do it. You know, those are the things. It's just like with advice. You might not always ask for something. I'm going to say, let me pull your coattail on this. So let me say this to you. Da. That's the relationship. And that's the way it should be. And when people are looking for mentors, and you may say, well, I ain't no pastor, I ain't no bishop, I'm not looking for that kind. Mentorship is mentorship, period. And if you are a tax preparer, you're a lawyer, you are, I don't know, you're a grass mower. If you are asking for somebody to mentor you, and likewise, if you're a preacher and a pastor, you've got to make sure that that person's got your best interest at heart on both sides. On both sides. Yeah. Because if I thought you were crazy and were disobedient and reckless, if I attach myself to you and then you mess up, then you mess me up.
Right.
Likewise, I have a responsibility to make sure I don't mess up, because then look at those thousands of members that are there. They're gonna say, Pastor, that's who the bishop is. This is who our covering is, and he did this. And I'm not saying that things don't happen, that mistakes don't happen, that people don't make mistakes, but at least we have a relationship where both of us, when we started, we've got the right intention that we're going to walk before God, because now I've got somebody attached. And I think a lot of folks don't understand that. Once you make a mentor-mentee relationship, both sides have to realize I'm attached to that person. And when I'm attached to that person, what I do affects them. And not only affects you and Lady T and the children, but all of the people that call you pastor. You know, Scotty, Tim, and Philip Cooley, when I sit up there and see them, and we used to play ball together and run together and go up and down Franklin Street and go around hard 15 times in our car on Friday and Saturday nights. And now all of us are in the house of God, and you they pastor, and they respect you as they pastor, and they say, here come Bishop. There's a huge responsibility. And it's not one time that I've not been at Now Church that the Lord didn't poke me and say, you know what? You're preaching, you are feeding, you are casting word, but you also have a responsibility, because they knew you back when. They knew Pastor Nate back when. And they see us in a relationship, a binded relationship, that's helping them to be able to see that I can have a trusted relationship with another brother, and that they can mentor me, and I'm not too big or too successful or too bad not to receive that leadership.
And I think that attachment too, you know, just in any kind of, you know, spiritual father, bishop, mentee relationship, the attachment, like you said, that responsibility, because it shows on the other person. You know, one of the things, I was talking to somebody today, and they thought it was really crazy. Not crazy, but they just thought it was strange, us being a non-denominational church. And they asked me, what authority does he have as the bishop? Is he just somebody who comes to preach every once in a while, and they get to see somebody in a robe, and they get to see somebody with a suit on and a chain, somebody's kind of different to you, older than you? What kind of attachment do y'all have? I said, his attachment as a bishop is not just a figurehead. I said, but this man, and I say that with all due respect, along with him, Pastor Brendan Timberlake, and one of our lay members, I said, he sets my salary. And they said, really? I said, as the bishop, this is not just a figurehead, something that looks cute and look like I said, they come up with my salary. And I said, I can go a step further. If I start to cut a fool, and I get in any kind of spiritual or moral things I'm not supposed to do, he can come take the keys to the church and sit me down. They said he can sit me down and say, we're sitting him down for a season, or he can say, he's no longer the pastor of Now Church. I said, that's in our bylaws. And I think when you take on the attachment of a bishop, what I do is a reflection of you. But if you don't have any kind of authority, you just kind of doing fake attachment.
That's right.
You're doing surface attachment. And there's like I said, we wrote that down in the bylaws. Bishop Brian R. Thompson can come, take these keys, get up on that stage, get in that pulpit and say, I'm doing this until he can get himself together.
And see, that speaks, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Pop.
Speaks to your humility and your spiritual walk with God, because a lot of persons wouldn't do that. They be like, oh, you can stand up there and we can stand and we can call you this, but you ain't gonna tell me what to do.
Right.
They missed the goal then. If that's the case, don't have nobody then.
Right.
And I've got to have enough faith in you to say, well, I don't think that's ever gonna happen. But it's in there because you wanted accountability. Yeah. Mentorship brings accountability. Overseeing brings accountability. And, you know, somebody asked me, just like they asked you to ask me, well, how you going to do that? Ain't you going to get in trouble doing that? I said, you going to understand, in the Amy Zion Church, when we deal with the Episcopal form of government, I'm elected, I'm assigned an area, I'm one of the 12 internationally. Okay. We understand that the 48 pastors and churches that I have in the West, that is under a different set of rules. But then we have something where I'm being able to oversee by bylaws of another organization. And I use an example. I'm on the World Council of Churches. I'm on the committee for the World Council.
Is that when you went to Germany?
That's when I went to Germany.
Okay.
So I'm with them. And then on other organizations that have it. Now, nobody says anything about that. Now we dealing with all of that. I'm dealing with all these denominations. Ain't nobody got nothing to say about it. when you're individual church, oh, you're going to get in trouble. It's really the same thing. You're overseeing in a ecclesiastical point of view rather than a denominational point of view, because understand that we are all under the body of Christ. And with that, I'm not violating anything. I'm doing a kingdom principle. We got to work kingdom, got to stop all of this. This is us and this is them. By you receiving that, what that does is increases kingdom rather than denomination. I ain't got no problem with denomination. I don't have a problem with non-denomination. But when you and I are operating in kingdom, and when you operate in kingdom and you have a set of bylaws and you have a board, and I just happen to be the head of that board by choice, as you saying, by being bishop and being that ecclesiastical covering and being that overseer, along with those board members, you hold yourself to accountability. And what we do is set a model for the rest of the world, whether it's AME Zion, AME, CME, Baptist, whatever, they can be able to see that we can be able to come together ecclesiastically. We can come together as the body of Christ, as kingdom, and say, you know what? This can work when you don't compete against one another, but you're trying to help one another. You've helped Zion because now through me, there is a connection with a non-denominational church that the Lord has put his hands on, and the leaders have such, you and your wife and the leaders there have such a wonderful paradigm that they are able to learn from that and know it's nothing outrageous and crazy, because they know I wouldn't be connected to it. Your people, my people, our people in Now Church get a chance to be able to see that you got a denominational bishop that is being able to come and oversee, be able to direct and guide under the auspices that the pastor is the authority in that church. He's the angel of the house. You and Lady T are the pastors of that church. Y'all are there. They can say, you know what? Denomination ain't so bad, because Bishop Thompson is an AME Zion bishop. Now, I don't know if he act like it all the time, but I understand this. That's what he is. And the election gives the a credibility to know that, look, he for real. He ain't some flip-flop off the corner that went and got a collar and got and bought something offline saying the bishop is bona fide. But when you do that, I don't think it just should be for the denomination. It should be for the kingdom of God in the body of Christ.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's cool, Pop, is that, you know, you being from Chapel Hill, me being from Chapel Hill, and, you know, you not growing up too far from where the church is. And right now you're, and I don't know as much as how that works. I ain't gonna get into that. But right now you being the bishop of the Western Episcopal District, and I don't know how that changes. You know, like I said, I'm not gonna get into that and say something wrong. But the people around here love Bishop Thompson at Now Church. They see you at the African American Festival. They go to their mama's church, and they're like, "Oh, we love Bishop, and we saw Bishop," and they taking pictures. And they take.
I don't mean to interrupt. I got to tell you this. I was in Marvin AME Zion Church in Waxhaw, North Carolina, preaching. I was preaching a Friday night for a district. All the districts were there together, and I was preaching. And this young lady came up to me and said, "You my bishop?" And I said, "Okay." I said, "No, he's my Bishop Starnes is over this area." She said, "No, I'm a member of Now Church." and Pastor Nate, Lady T, my pastor first lady, She was so excited. But when she started to tell, she told somebody, look here, this Bishop Thompson right here. He preached, you know, that just made me smile. Not the fact that she was saying that, but it solidifies what you said just then, is that the love came out. And
oh, they love you.
Kind of love.
Oh, they love you. They love when you come. And you know, I love the fact that, you know, when you come, you and Missionary Supervisor, y'all might have, I know last time y'all had something else in another state, or you had to preach somewhere, but y'all stay around. And I don't think a lot of people are used to that. In the lobby, you know, Missionary Supervisor had some kids last time she was here. She was in the lobby with kids, and I know some of the mothers, y'all were taking pictures over by the picture board, and I think the thing about it is, you know, I wanted somebody who was like me but not like me. You know,
I get it.
I think they need to see that eldership. You know, when you come and you preach the house down, they're like, he preached, man. That's the best message I'd have heard. I'm like, good. I'm glad y'all. It's kind of like Lady T. We love Lady T. I'm like, good. I'm glad y'all love some Lady T. Oh, I'm glad. And in the same way, when you come, like, I'm glad they love you. I'm glad they get to see somebody. You're like, hey, I'm coming. I'm like, hey, Pop, don't come up here with no Jordans, Papa. Don't. Yeah, I need the robe. I need the chain. I need the ring. Like, I want a bishop. I'm not trying to find nobody, you know, and if somebody has somebody that's kind of like them, that's fine. But I think you're just so wise beyond your years because you've done it for so long. You know, us just being 5 years apart. And when you come, you know, first of all, I'm proud that on Sundays when we worship, Jesus comes. Okay, I just want to be clear about that.
Yes, sir.
But when you come, I mean, I'm just so proud to see the people, how they love you and how they love missionary supervisor, and you know they run out, and I just like it, and I think that God, you know, set that up so you would have a church in your hometown. You know, we don't really get to see California and Seattle and Alaska and Colorado, but I think God set this up where you have two boys from Chapel Hill, and I say that with due respect, but you know, you had a church in Durham that you were pastoring, but what you always felt like God called you to do what you had a desire to do, because a bishop, as we've talked about, is a desired position. But I just think it's cool that you get to have something you can point to in your own hometown. It's something that God is moving in. And so I think about that all the time. You have these two guys from Chapel Hill, one's the pastor, one's the bishop, but I'm here physically every week, but you have something, and I say this with due respect, that you have something that Brian Thompson can point to. I think that's kind of cool.
I think it's mad cool. I love it. And I'm just as proud and honored to be able to do that. And that connection came through you. That's the only way the connection would be there. So that's when I talk about the mentee-mentor relationship. Both benefit. And if it's not a reciprocal relationship, then it's not healthy. Mm-hmm. It has to be reciprocal, and it's very much reciprocal for my wife and I. We love coming to worship there. And we're going to sneak in on you one Sunday without having to preach. I'm going to just show up. And I'm gonna sit wherever they let me sit, and I'm gonna sit up there and say, preach. But it's just a wonderful.
Look, they don't know where I got y'all to miss your first shout. They don't know where I stole that from. That's kind of like when Kobe went to meet with Olajuwon and learned how to do the back down the spin. I remember I was at AME Zion. He said, y'all to miss y'all first shot. I said, let me write that down.
We all get a little bit from somewhere, but you've not wasted it. You ain't wasted the seed. You ain't wasted one seed. And if anything, it's my father in ministry, Reverend Lawrence Turner, said to me, son, do you know how proud I am that you are bishop, the 106th bishop, over 250 years in existence? And you are the 106th bishop. And I was there, started. Oh, Lord, it just warmed my heart. For him to say that brought pride to me, because I'm humble because he's my father in ministry. Where it's the same way. When I come up there and see what the Lord has done and how he's grown the church and how precision it is, how orderly it is, how much praise and worship, how much anointing is in that place, and the Spirit, I said, God, no, son, I am proud of you. And I sit up there and look, and I watch the replay and watch you preach. And I said, look at it. I said, preach. And I just love it, because I'll be placing, I'll comment. I think one of the social media person said, Bishop, comment, because I'll be getting ready to preach, or I'll be on the West Coast, or we'll be on a plane, and I'm getting to preach. And I look, because we're 3 hours ahead or 2 hours, whatever, and I'll text. It gives me joy to know that y'all are having great success in anything that I may have done to be able to be a part of that. I'm humble, but I believe it's my responsibility to do all I can to make sure that you hear from God through me, but also through yourself in which you do every week, but also that God will give me some divine revelation and instruction to be able to say, this is what's up. And I just love it. I love it.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you giving me your time. I know you do not have a lot of it. That's why I'm always calling you and regurgitating stuff that you say to me. Pop, you preached yesterday. You drink your gallon of water? No, I'm laying down, but I ain't drank my water yet. All right, Pop, I'm gonna call you back. Make sure you drink your water. And then, you sending me your little videos on your bike, did your thing and stuff like that. And I know your time is very, very limited. With your beautiful family, missionary supervisor, and your son and your daughter. And I just appreciate over these last 5 years how you have given me not only your time, but I feel like you've given me your best. Like you can give somebody your time, but I feel like you've given me your best. I don't feel like I'm ever getting leftovers. I feel like I'm a priority. I feel like when I walk in the room, wherever you are, whether it's a conference with the Western Episcopal District, when missionary supervisor was doing her women's conference she did, and you got a Tyler Perry actor in the building, and y'all behind the pipe and drape talking to me and my wife. I mean, y'all ain't studying this, or we're coming to that event and you text me, ask me, I'm on my way. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on my way. And I see you standing in the corner. And I said, Pop, I just walked in. And you were like, I was not going to leave this spot until I saw you. That's rare when you have so many sons and so many members and stuff like that. So I just want to know that I appreciate you. I love you. I hope you're watching the Commanders win some games this year.
That's why we go fast and pray. Yeah. I
was really confused about your text the other day about the Minnesota Timberwolves. Are you going for the Timberwolves or are you not? What?
I just like Ant-Man.
Okay.
And that's it. I just like Ant-Man. That's all. I just like to see people excel, but the Minnesota Timberwolves getting ready to go home. That's what
because Kyrie got his moccasins on, and he doing
he every move I taught him he used. God knows Kyrie doing that thing. The only bad thing I know he did is didn't take that COVID shot and didn't go to UNC. Them the two things I know he didn't do.
All the two things he did. But Pop, I know you on your way to Palo Alto.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna call you early in the morning before you go, and I love you and I appreciate you, Pop.
Hey, I love you too. I'm proud of you and Lady T. I'm proud of Now Church. Missionary supervisor and I love y'all. Ain't nothing you can do about it. And we look forward to see the chapter, the now to next of what God is about to do. And I just can't wait to see it. And we're gonna sit there and continue to push you and pray for you, and you continue to be obedient to the Spirit. I want you to take a vacation, to a couple of them.
Oh, they've been reminding me what you said. So
yeah, you got to take a vacation because it'll mess with you here and here. So I want you to do that and continue to date, go on dates with your wife and outings with your children. Just keep being the same Pastor Nate Davis that we've seen all this time. And God gonna give you the desires of your heart. I love you. I love your family. And we're going to continue to do it as we love Now Church.
Yes, sir. Love you, Pop.
Love you too. Take it easy.
Okay.